On behalf of the Department of English, Miranda House, I welcome all of you to the V. Krishna Memorial Lecture. It's a pleasure to have all of you here despite the strike, but let me just announce that it was planned earlier, so we couldn't cancel it, although we do stand with the people in solidarity, whoever is on the strike right now, with the Duta. Okay, to begin with, let me just say a few words about the lecture. This lecture has been around since 1987. It's basically a lecture in honor of Miss Krishna, who joined our college in 1948. She was one of the six teachers to join the college. Mrs. Krishna has been known for her passion for teaching and for her intellectual aptitude, for her love for her students. We've had a series of lectures in memory of her, in honor of her, and we've had extremely prestigious scholars like Mahashweta Devi, Gayatri Spivak, we've had Gugli Vatyangu, and we have Jayanthi Kuru-Utumpala. And it's a pleasure to have her here. It's an honor and it's a homecoming because she's also an alumni of the department who passed out in 2003.
Actually, the first V. Krishna lecture being given by one of our own.
Oh, it's also the first lecture to be given, and which also shows how proud we are of our students and how much we love them, of course. It's an honor because apart from Mrs. Krishna and the illustrious speakers we have had, I'll of course be talking about Ms. Utumpala in a minute. Just before I say that, just before I tell everybody about our speaker, just two notes of gratitude, to express our gratitude to the India Sri Lanka Foundation for sponsoring her trip. Personally, we would like to thank Mrs. Nirmala and Mrs. Manisha. Manisha happens to be an alumni and is currently the Sri Lankan ambassador to the UK, and it's with their support that Jayanthi is here. I'd just like to read out a little note from Manisha, who couldn't be here in person but wrote this wonderful note about this event, where she says, actually Nirmala really did the legwork in getting it, like getting the sponsorship. I'm very happy to have been able to support this venture, and I want to say how proud I am to see Sri Lanka featured in such a prominent way at Miranda House at this event today. This was indeed not the case when I was a foreign student at Miranda House in those very early days. It is very good for the students to receive exposure to the diversity and importance of their Indian neighborhood, to be able to be better attuned to their received reality, which is defined by the dominant discourse. And she also says that Jayanthi is a great honor for Miranda House, as well as because she's the first Mirandian to have climbed Mount Everest, apart from being one of the first Sri Lankan women to climb Mount Everest. Just another sentence about Jayanthi, because Jayanthi is not just climbed the Mount Everest as the first Sri Lankan woman. She's also somebody who's passed out from Miranda and gone on to do a master's in the University of Sussex. And what she's going to speak about today is basically not just about being a climber, but also about climbing and being on top of the world as a woman and as somebody who's very, very active about gender rights and also talking about them to the others. Thank you so much, Jayanthi, for being here, and it's a pleasure and honor to have you here.
Thank you so much for that really lovely introduction. I must say that I'm really, really honored and privileged to be here and deeply moved as well. So I'll do my best to avoid the waterworks, which you may have let me, if that happens, I'll be aware. But just so also, before I start off, I mean, this whole journey has been a journey of many lessons for me. Before I start, I have to thank many people, including definitely the Sri Lankan. Now you won't even see me because I'm so dark. You might see my teeth. But
Put it on.
I'm not stripping, don't worry. Okay. I have to thank the Sri Lankan High Commission in Delhi, and as was just mentioned, also Manisha as well as Ms. Nirmali for bringing me here, for also making sure that the costs are covered. And particularly I must thank the principal of Miranda House, I met her about almost a month ago. I never met her in college because I think you probably have to climb Everest to meet her. Just kidding, she was not here, but I met her. I was grateful to meet her when I came back, and Sharmila here actually took me to meet her, and that was the beginning of this discussion to come and share this story with all of you here. So I deeply thank Ms. Pratibha Jolly, the principal, and also I have to thank some people who really have made me who I am today. And okay, so that I'll go through a list of names. Miss Deepika Tandon, Miss Indira Prasad. Why am I? This is horrible. I told you about waterworks, right? Shashwati Sengupta, Dr. Joshi. Some who are not here physically, and some who are not here in many other ways, but still with us in spirit as well. Miss Manju Kapoor, Miss Masuma Ali, who's left us unfortunately, but still around. Miss Sharmila Purkayasa, who we fondly call Purki. Behind her back, of course, now she knows. Gayatri, Dr. Gayatri Acharya, Angela Korat, and Shampa Roy. These women actually made me who I am. And I'm deeply grateful that I am who I am because of them. And I must say, because when I joined Miranda House, I was 21 years old, older than many of you when you join college, because in Sri Lanka we are in school for 2 years more. But at that 21, you still don't know who on earth you are. You're finding yourself, you're finding your feet. And I'm not really a studious person, but I was told you have to do a degree. So off I came here and struggled through it, but managed somewhat. And I think for me, just everything that I've learned at Miranda, those formative years in my life, for those 3 years, has been what really has made me who I am today. And this is a lot to do with the fact that Miranda House, the English department, was also really known for the feminist politics that they share with their students in all the texts. And I have learned so much about just myself, about society, about why things are the way they are. And I know that climbing this mountain wouldn't have also been possible without that understanding of, as a woman, what does this mean in this patriarchal society. And I do remember, I must say, the first year I was here, so all the teachers would just, every text had a feminist perspective to it. And at the first year, I was like, oh my God, this is way too much feminism. It is over my head. Believe it or not, even I remember that. I have a bad memory, but some things I do remember. But by the third year, I was a complete convert and really understood so much more about why it's important to our lives. And when I got back to Sri Lanka, I was 23, and the first job I started was working with a local women's rights organization in Colombo with those 3 women who are there, who were my mentors, who are my mentors still. And the journey has continued. So that's a bit of background, and without taking too much time over all of that, I will come back to that and link all of this feminism and how does it link to climbing Everest towards the end of this session. But let me start off by actually coming to this mountain also. Sorry, 1 moment. So as with any journey, there's always a beginning and an end. End was good this time. There's nothing that went wrong, thankfully. But to climb Everest, actually, for me, many people ask, why did you do this, or where did you get this idea? You're from an island, and remember that our tallest mountain is 8,000 feet, like 2,000 meters. It's like a pimple compared to Everest, which is 29,000 feet. So, and you all have the Himalayas, which is beautiful. So for me, though, Everest has been a childhood dream. It was something that when I was about 6 or 8 years old, at that age, your uncles and aunties and elderly people or older people would always ask you, darling, what do you want to be when you grow up? These big questions. And I remember when I was asked the same question, in my heart and in my head, the answer was always to climb Mount Everest. But I never shared this with anyone, because otherwise it's tappad marungi, you will get a good slap, right? I would have got a good slap because you are supposed to say you want to be a lawyer, a doctor, or something more fancy than saying you want to climb a mountain, right? So I never really shared this. But I carried that idea with me all my life, and when I was at Miranda House, just about finishing my degree here, and one of the many tutorials, I had gone to Sharmila's house one day, and then we were talking about something, and there was a photograph of her husband on the coffee table with snow mountains in the background. And I was like, oh my gosh, where is that? I want to go because I love, and we don't have snow mountains, so I wanted to go to these snow mountains. And she said, yeah, this is this course he did. And I dug out, found out information and realized that was a school set up by Tenzing Norgay called the Himalayan Mountaineering Institute. And they have these mountaineering courses. So off I went. I was like, perfect, after my degree, of course. 1 month I took off to do this course. And like me, there were about 5 other students who were nature lovers and English literature students who had turned up from other parts of India. But a majority of the people were actually from the military in India, which for some reason I had missed that point. And the course was also conducted by the Indian Army. So it was boot camp training, which I was horrified at. I'm not cut out for the army, but it was like torture in many ways. But that course really is where I learned all my basics. I learned about rock climbing, about technical aspects, about knots, about ice climbing, about how to rescue someone from a crevice, how to look after your body the higher you go with high altitude sickness, with less oxygen, what do you do to stay alive on the mountain? Not just go up but also come back down in one piece, not multiple pieces. So I learned that in 2003 and it was amazing, even though it was really tough. And then again I could see and I thought one day if I could climb Everest, wow, that would be amazing, but never even imagining it's possible, ever. It was just one of those dreams. It's like if you want to tell someone you want to go to the moon, no one's going to believe you, right? So you don't even dare say it, and you don't even dare think it, it's just there at the back of your head. And that was how it was for me with Everest. Then the following year I came back, sucker for punishment, went back and did the advanced course, another 30 days, back at HMI, the school, but learned so much more. And then, so I would climb wherever I was back at Sri Lanka working. Whenever I got a chance to go to another country for a conference, I would save my per diem. They give you like a small amount for your breakfast and lunch and dinner. I would save that, buy a bus ticket and go find the closest mountain or some rocks and go climb. Because it was like an addiction that I had. And but in 2011, I met someone in Sri Lanka who was as crazy as I was. And that is this person in the photograph on the right hand side in the red suit. That's Johan, who became then my climbing partner. So I had heard of him because he was a well-known hairdresser, mind you, in Sri Lanka. So also in many ways challenging stereotypes because hairdressers usually don't like to get their fingers dirty. They like city life, fashion, makeup, the whole thing, you know what I mean, right? Ramps and all that. And here was Johan who loved to get outdoors and in tents and just go camping and mountaineering as well. So he was doing an expedition to a mountain called Island Peak in Nepal, and I then joined him on that expedition. It was a 6,200 meter mountain, and I said, oh, I don't know any other Sri Lankans, can I come with you? I would love to join. And he said, okay, and that's how our friendship began. We didn't really kick each other off the mountain, and we survived 3 weeks together, which meant that clearly we could be a team. So that's how our friendship began, and I told him on that journey, because Island Peak is not too far from Everest, you can see it in the distance, you can see Everest in the distance. And I told him, Johan, one day, I don't know when, I would love to climb this mountain. I was able to share it with him because I knew he was also a fellow mountaineer. And I said, I don't know, and I may not come back from this journey, but I have to climb this one day. And I said, would you ever consider doing this with me? And he promptly agreed, much to my amazement. And I was thrilled because that's when we started then talking about it a bit more, and we thought, okay, let's climb another mountain. So even with Everest, there was also like a huge planning preparation stage, which actually in a sense began in 2012 when we climbed Island Peak. And then 2 years later, we thought, okay, before Everest, which is the tallest in the world, let's climb another peak together as a team and see how we function on the mountain, because things go wrong and that can really test your friendship and your relationship. So then we did Kilimanjaro together, which was also successful. We came back fine and safe. And then we started our planning for Everest, which was 2 years later. So this, of course, is this beautiful mountain called Chomolungma or Sangamartha in the local languages. That's Everest, yeah. And then, of course, once we decided to climb Everest, there was also the training program that we had to now put ourselves through. But this was also not easy because it was just that we both had full-time jobs. Climbing was only our hobby. But we would meet at a certain place every day at 5 o'clock in the morning, do our training, and whatever time we got home the previous night, it didn't matter. I would be there at 5 a.m., he would be there at 5 a.m., we would train for 1.5 hours, then go to work, then back again in the evening, and that was our schedule for 1 year. before we left. And then we had to also make do with the resources we have in Sri Lanka, which those tiny pimple kind of mountains, where we would run up and down those mountains just to train our bodies. I mean, we couldn't keep flying to India, but that was part of our training as well. And then we had our biggest mountain, not just the people, I mean like our biggest challenge, nothing to do with the people in this, but our biggest challenge actually was sponsorship, which was a huge challenge because the cost for this journey was huge. And I hate taking loans, and I've never done it, touch wood so far, and don't plan to, but it was not even an amount, even if I took a loan, I think like for the rest of my life I'll be paying a loan, and I just didn't want to do that. So we had to seek sponsorship, both of us. And so it was difficult because in Sri Lanka, you can imagine what's the main sport? Cricket. And men's cricket at that, not just any cricket, right? So when you say, so we went with our proposal, please, we're going to climb Everest. People just looked at us like we had horns or we were crazy because they were like, what do you want to do? Why do you want to do this? What is at the top of this mountain? They were bemused, they were puzzled, they couldn't understand why. And so then we managed to meet the president and the prime minister of the country, and we didn't get financial sponsorship from the government, but we did get 2 endorsement letters basically saying, okay, here are the first 2 people from Sri Lanka attempting to climb Everest. We wish them good luck and please support them. So then we went with this letter back to the corporates and said, please, we've been endorsed by the heads of the state, can you please sponsor us? And I remember there were a few, then we got a few appointments from CEOs and big fellows from big companies basically, like, people who would normally fund such events. And sometimes we'd meet people and they would sort of look at us and say, the 2 of you are going to climb Everest? Sort of really like, you all don't look, and in their head you can see them thinking, you all don't even look like sports people, you all don't look strong. One person even told me, you're so tiny, how can you climb Everest? Right? So clearly. And then somebody even had asked Johan, not in front of me, they had asked him, why are you going with a woman? Almost like she will fail, you will both fail, so it will be a disaster. But this notion that, mountaineering, no one in Sri Lanka had done this. And these 2 people, where did they come from? They think they can climb Everest, like they're crazy. That was the impression that people had of us. But we had to keep pushing and keep persisting and just went after however many no's we had, people saying no, we went back, called people, harassed them, everything, and we finally got all the sponsorship we needed, which itself was a huge achievement for us because it was almost impossible. So with the sponsorship, then we set off on the 28th of March in 2016 and we came to Nepal because we were climbing from the Kathmandu side. And that's when we met our mountaineering company called International Mountain Guides. They're a US-based company that link up with a Nepali company and they do all the logistics. So with all the reading and research we had done, Everest was not a mountain we wanted to do on our own because, as I said earlier, our goal was not just to go up but also to come back down. So safety was critical for us. And we wanted to find a company that we felt would tell us if we were not ready to do this, they would tell us to turn back, right? Because our lives were most important. So we met them in Nepal. Then from Kathmandu, the journey begins by a small helicopter that you take to a place called Lukla. And from that point onwards, your journey is by foot. So then you start walking and you can kind of see the paths here. And there are these suspension bridges. So it's beautiful. And of course, there's no public transport or no mode of transportation on this trail. Everything is carried up by the Sherpa community, which is amazing to see as well, like they're so strong. And the only mode of transportation were these yaks that you have, but for our bags, not for us to ride them, but goods were carried on that. And then after walking for about, so every day we would walk, some days 4 hours, some days 8 hours, and then we would stay at one of the tea houses, so the villages along the way. Up to base camp, there are villages along the way. And if you see all these, like the way the villages are cut into the mountain, the houses, the buildings, you can imagine that everything that's built here is built by hand. There are no machines in terms of, you can see people carrying fridges on their backs and like huge doors. It was amazing, or 5 or 6 gas cylinders up the mountain because there's no transportation. And it's just mine now. I can't get my head around it, but the Sherpa community live in these mountains, and I must say that this expedition also that we did would never be possible without their support. They play a huge role in any expedition, and they played a huge role even in the expedition by Tenzing Norgay and Edmund Hillary, and even before that. So we were also going with a company that had